one within 8 miles of El Paso, another one closer to New Mexico. They're trying to enter the country through those two ports of entry happening, and it's downright scary and alarming, and it certainly threatens national security.
Judicial Watch investigative reporter Irene Garcia appearing on this program earlier this week, discussing the story reported by her organization, Mexican officials confirming an ISIS camp just 8 miles from our southern border. That disturbing report has a lot of people talking, including the FBI. And a new Judicial Watch report claims our FBI held a special meeting about their story in Mexico, specifically in Ciudad Juarez. So what was that meeting about? For more on the story, let's ask the Director of Research and Investigations for Judicial Watch, Chris Farrell, who joins us live via Skype. Chris, right off the bat, tell us more about that meeting in Juarez.
I think the interesting thing about the meeting in Juarez is that there were two objectives. Number one was to formulate a press strategy in an effort to knock down our story, to try to deny and refute our claims, because they knew that they were accurate, that we'd reported truthfully, and that had a lot of people very disturbed. So they had to work out a press strategy in an effort to knock down the story. And then the second point that they were interested in doing was finding out who's providing information to us.
Well, Chris, Ellis Hennigan here in New York, I depend on leaks as you do, and I hate it when government tries to figure out who my leaks are. But I mean, is it really your claim that there's an ISIS camp 8 miles from the border and we're not doing anything about it? I mean, that part of the world around Juarez is just crawling with DEA agents and Border Patrol people and FBI agents. And I mean, it's hard to believe that there'd really be an ISIS camp there and we're just kind of shrugging our shoulders and turning our head. Is that the claim?
The same way there's the Vicente Carrillo Fuentes cartel in Juarez, and we don't do anything about that. I don't think you're too surprised or shocked by that. There's an enormous, Juarez for years has been the most violent city in the Western Hemisphere. And we've stood by and watched cartels engage in human smuggling, drug trafficking. We don't seem to do too much about that either.
Chris, I want to return to the meeting you just discussed that took place in Juarez. The FBI and Mexican officials, and I understand Homeland Security was not invited? Why not?
Correct.
Why not?
That's a great question, because I reached out to a Homeland Security agent and said, do you realize the FBI is meeting with the Mexican Army and the Mexican Federal Police in Juarez? You guys weren't invited. What do you think about it? And the only response back I got from this particular person I was communicating with was, thanks for letting me know, I'll check. So Homeland Security didn't have a clue. I don't know why they were excluded, but they were not invited.
Chris, let me hone in just a little bit more on your allegations here. In your reporting, the FBI knows about this. They're having meetings about it. Their agents up and down the agency are aware of it, and they're choosing not to act against it because it's a wide open area around Juarez and the drug cartels are there. Is that the claim?
No. What the claim was is that the Mexican police and the Mexican Army conducted a joint operation late Friday night into Saturday morning early. This is all in our report. If you read the report, it's very clear. And as part of that operation by this joint Army police task force moving into an opera, they discovered this operational element of ISIS, and they recovered documents, a plan or a map. I'm not sure if the way the plan was conveyed, it was not clear whether it meant a physical document or a map of some type concerning Fort Bliss, but nonetheless, documentation concerning Fort Bliss. So there is action being taken. It's being taken by the Mexicans, and the FBI is aware of this. So there's no claim that nothing's being done, actually exactly the opposite, and that's how this was uncovered.
And there is so much more to this story, and it's so important, and quite frankly, very few people in the dominant media culture are talking about it. But since we're not the media, we're Newsmax TV, we'll continue to talk about it right after this. Let's continue our conversation now with Chris Farrell of Judicial Watch from Washington, D.C., and our friend Ellis Henican at Newsmax New York. Chris, the reaction to your report of an ISIS camp within 8 miles of our southern border has prompted a whole lot of concern, and it has prompted the government, as you mentioned earlier, to go to some lengths to try and knock your story down. What convinced you at Judicial Watch that this story is indeed accurate?
Because of our sources. These are well-established sources that we've gone to for a considerable length of time, who have consistently reported and provided very high-quality intelligence to us. And they've done so, frankly, at some jeopardy to their own lives. And so based upon their established reporting credentials with us and the accuracy of their information, we felt compelled to produce our report.
Chris, is it inevitable that ISIS camps will pop up everywhere, including in the United States, as young zealots decide that the route to salvation for them is committing these horrible acts of suicide and atrocity? I mean, is this just part of the world that we have to deal with going forward, do you think?
I think it's something we're facing now. Just yesterday in Ohio, a young man was indicted for his involvement in travel to Syria and support of terrorism. There's been arrests in Brooklyn, arrests in Minneapolis of people involved in support to terrorism. The FBI arrested somebody outside of Fort Riley, Kansas for a car bomb, all ties to terror. So what I find curious is, with all of these terror-related arrests and incidents in the United States, why is it so terribly shocking to say that terrorists might be operating from a safe haven in Mexico, where there's little or no attention being paid, where they can conduct staging and preparation for attacks in really what's a safe haven? Why is that so hard to accept when we have arrests in the United States all the time?
Chris, let me ask you this. Judicial Watch has been out front taking the administration to court, now offering this story. Do you ever get concerned that the feds might take some direct action against your organization?
Well, first of all, that would be rather foolish and probably unlawful. We're a public interest group, we're a law firm, we're journalists who publish both online and in print every day and at least monthly. So I don't think it's in the best interests of the federal government to attack a watchdog organization that is trying to educate the public about government operations, doing so lawfully. When we're a law firm and we're journalists, it doesn't seem to be a wise choice on the part of any government agency that would think to do that.
Chris, let me follow up on JD's question. I remember there was a time back in the Larry Klayman days at Judicial Watch where efforts were made to focus some of this firepower on the right as well as the left. It seems lately Judicial Watch has mostly been essentially a conservative political organization. Do you see things broadening out in the future?
We sued the Bush administration 300 times.
And I think that's the answer
you
right
can pretty
there.
much stick with this one here, huh? Yeah, okay.
Well, whoever's in power, there needs to be exposed.
It's when the Obama administration's in office and Democrats held both houses of Congress for the first 2 years of his presidency, well, who's in charge? And so the administration that's in charge is the one that gets attention. Mm-hmm. And so when the Bush administration was in office, like I said, we sued them over 300 times. I think it's a pretty even-handed approach to things.
And that's a good place to end it. Gentlemen, we appreciate it. Chris Farrell, continue that outstanding reporting. We look forward to having you back soon. Ellis Henican, for your unique point of view, we always welcome that. To you, gentlemen, we hope to have you back real soon. And in the interim, have a great weekend. Now, before we take our leave, again, a programming note. America's Forum will air at 11 a.m. Eastern Time, 8 a.m. in the West, next week only. Here's the revised lineup for next week, and understand that also in the offing, some other schedule changes, some pretty exciting things happening. Hint, I get to stay up a little later at night. For now, thanks for your time. Have a great weekend. Stay brave, stay free, stay tuned.